Welcome back to Visual Trigger.
Well, even during lockdown, quarantine, which is some bastardized definition of quarantine, time still goes fucking quick. And it doesn't seem like it could possibly be Friday again. I fucking said Didn't mean to say And yeah, I think this is there we go. 16-year-old Dalwhinnie. I mean, I talked to Jamie McCarthy. He's a photographer in New York for Getty. Got to get him on here too and drink some scotch. Frank didn't drink any scotch with me. I mean, he talked about alcohol. He sent me pictures of alcohol later that day, but he didn't have any. And we're still working on the photos from him. There's quite a few, so getting him inserted like where the time code he wants, takes a little bit of time. But thank you so much for all of the likes and comments and subscribes. That's really cool. Definitely gives me motivation to make some more of these. Motivates me to drink some more scotch. I have to remember not to... Oh, that was my knee, and that didn't feel very good. So let's see. Besides enjoyed all the comments. I tried to get back to as many as I could. Did a little bit of shooting this week. Social distance shooting. I was in a place that it's really hard to describe to someone who lives in a metropolis or a city what a certain aspect out here, but I told these two kids behind the counter, do either of you guys know how to write a screenplay? And they kind of looked. One guy said, I'm not smart enough to write a screenplay. And I'm like, you're left-handed. I haven't met one fucking idiot who's a left-hander. Plenty of idiots who are right-handers, but left? No, I wouldn't say that at all. And he's like, why'd you ask that? And I said, are you looking around? So this is at the gun counter of a store. And yeah, I was buying a new gun. It was a 22. It's the coolest little lever action thing. Sold out everywhere, but not this crazy little... It's like a supermarket, but it's not. And it's not a Walmart because the employees all own it. And I'm not sure how many. There's probably a dozen locations. Well, there's a dude. And it's not like they have lots of guns. It's not a full service store, but the kids knew plenty about both ammunition, all the models they sold. There's a small case with probably 16 different handguns, pistols, and dude walks in with a Confederate flag, the shape of Oregon, and then Get Her Done tattooed on his neck with kind of this wife who you just know is complicit, even though she knows the dude, there's all sorts of shit wrong with this guy, but she's complicit. And the odd thing was I identified at least 3 tattoos on his person that would lead me to believe he'd served time, probably in a prison. He was probably a felon. So I definitely watched his hands the entire time to see if he had an extra magazine to shove in that well. That not the smartest thing you could do in this state, because, other than like Portland and Eugene, 1 in 12 people here is armed. So anyway, I tried to like visually distract him because I wanted that photo. And right above his head, it said guns, ammo, fishing. You know, like the aisle sign where it would say like rice, beans, ethnic food, whatever. And I knew I had one shot. I pre-focused on the bridge of his nose because he was kind of a profile, but I wanted the getter done. I wanted the hat. I wanted the gun in the hand. I wanted the thing above him. I don't know. I guess, I mean, since it's not digital, uh, I just want to make sure because I didn't say sound speed in my head like I hate not getting good sound. Even scratch audio is fine. This is much better. Anyway, it's film. I still haven't finished the rest of the roll. I did check my lab is still an essential business. Not sure how a film lab is. Hey, but they're pretty much the same size as Richard in LA, and their prices are way better. And many other things, but I'm sure Richard has changed since I last used them. Looking forward to getting that back. Drove up to a place called Blue Moon Camera. They pretty much specialize in film cameras, dark room, chemicals, and surprisingly they have a lot of stuff. And I mean, I don't know why it's surprising. You know, when you're used to like freestyle in Los Angeles, this, you know, that's a town of what county of 12 million or so. You know, this is much smaller up here. But anyway, these guys had on everything from paper to chemistry to film, at least as good of prices as B&H, which is fantastic because I'd much rather give my money to a smaller store that has, you know, I mean, I'm not saying there's not good people at B&H. I'm sure there are. I just burn out on them. And besides, they couldn't get me something. Yeah, I know, pandemic. It's New York. I still want fucking what I want. So to do my job. So I had to order from other places such as Roberts. They got it to me in 3 days what I needed. So, you know, I wanted some new T-Max 100 to shoot medium format because I'm doing an ongoing project for basically I'm building the photo asset library for a nonprofit that has to do with wine up in this area. So I've done a little shooting on that. I've mostly done digital so far for them. Let's see. I think I need to move this over just a bit. There we go. I'm really impressed with Fuji's AFC movie mode. I ramped up the like locking accuracy by 1. I still left the speed. Yeah, there we go. And I have 2 small HD. Is that what they're called? What the hell is the name of the company? Yeah, small HD. There we go. So this is the one I put on a rig. Find the focus, Fuji, just as I was talking all nice about you. But I hate mounting and dismounting and building cages and taking cages apart. It's a pain in the ass. I wish I just had one piece of equipment per, like the gimbal, like for the thing that's recording this on a contraption that I put lots of grip gear and a baby nail on, screwed into a stud in the wall. But the small HDs, I literally had the first small HD, and I think it was like 2009, 8, somewhere in there. and it's still, I can't load a LUT on it. That's fine though. It gives me, I can just have it sitting in a place that I just have to put in the little HD thingy. It seems to work better for me. It burns way less with wine when you do it that way. Damn. I noticed that the fescue farmers, they grow grass, literally big, and they wait till the grass gets like 2 feet high. It releases more fucking pollen. And I was fine with like grass. I don't have a grass allergy, but when these sons of bitches, they allegedly, I don't know for a fact who they sell it to, but all the seed goes to China. So I guess China likes to grow grass. I don't know. But that's where it's all fescue, and you can see it like clouds of pollen in the air, and it sucks. Didn't really get around to filming anything in the dark room. I'd like to, but I kind of like to have angles where I don't have to use a tripod, and I can use more baby nail-ons, which means holes. But I don't know. Maybe I'll just get a gorilla. Oh, you know what? I do have that arm. Yeah, maybe I'll just use that. Well, let's see. I want to talk about an experience with my kid going to art center. So, super bright kid. Pretty sure math wasn't like a big thing to her. But she was always quite good at photography. So, when it came time to choose a place to go to school, she got accepted at SVA in New York. I don't think she applied to RISD. I don't think she applied to Savannah. We went and visited Brooks, and that dude who was like the admissions guy, I literally had to develop his cell phone, his personal cell phone, to call him and say, dude, you need to stop. The everyday calls to both of us is super annoying, and I'm going to start calling your wife. Like, I'll find her phone number too. Don't worry about it. So but that was a good thing, because actually Brooks went out of business because some shyster woman ended up buying it, and who knows, she probably wanted to load the balance sheet with a bunch of debt. I'm not sure how that worked out for her, but clearly they had an auction and Brooks is gone. So she got accepted to Art Center. I know one of the dudes who is the business teacher guy there. Super, like, fantastic photographer. I don't know, like, it's interesting to me that he doesn't teach more of the lighting and he should teach one more class, because some of his work, you've seen his work. And see, I've got to be a little cagey because I know all these teachers. I mean, I guess at any other college it'd be called professors, but they're not professors there. So, I don't know. I'm sure that one of them could see what I'm about to say about their school, but there's something like rate my professor, rate my school. I mean, they score so low on at least half. And when I read them, it totally made sense. Like, some of them you could tell that, little art student who's a little sensitive, thinks the world's persecuting them for being whatever they are, the little art student. That could be true. I don't see any of those teachers doing that kind of stuff. They're pretty I mean, okay, so there was one woman who she was the real deal. She's an art director type, knows her shit, super successful, has a great eye. I know she got something out of that class. There was an old fashion guy named Paul Jasmine who's super famous. His work's amazing. She got a lot out of that guy too. But there are a lot she didn't get very much from. And I'd be shocked if they didn't accept everybody. In fact, I'd be shocked. I mean, I remember back in the day, like even Brooks turned away people. I don't think Brooks turns away anybody, or they did when she was applying. In fact, I don't think RISD does. I'll bet none of them turn away people because, I mean, 3 years. It's essentially 3 years to graduate at Art Center if you just go through everything, work through your summers. And my kid was like, I'm gonna work through the summer. I'm like 2 summers in a row. She didn't take a break. She literally had like 2 weeks between these terms. She was so dead set on getting the fuck out of there and just, getting on with it. Back in the day, you get a gig with a bigger photographer and assist. It'd be disingenuous if I said that it's not easier for dudes because we can carry heavy shit. And I'm not saying girls can't. I'm just saying that big photographers are usually looking for a mule. Because when you're talking about massive commercial productions, there's a lot of shit. And I mean, I fucking wish I had a mule right now. But you find assistants in cities. They don't live in the middle of nowhere. And it's not really, it's like fancy middle of nowhere. But anyway, she was dead set on getting in and getting out. And I remember the summer before she started the first fall, and I asked, I mean, I could say I made her, but you can't make her do anything. So I advised her it would be really smart to learn how to load 4x5 film holders. Because if you've never been in a dark bag, it sucks. And when I did it, I had both a bag and a tent. It really depended on what that photographer that I was assisting. I assisted a guy in the automotive and motorcycle world, so it was sometimes if a driver didn't show up, I was the driver. If an editor didn't show up to do other things, I did that. And the funny thing was, not to get off topic, however, there was this one art director, and he mostly worked in Tokyo because that's where, all the headquarters for Kawasaki, Honda. This guy, I'm pretty sure it was Kawasaki. Super trippy dude, but during the summer is when you'd shoot all the brochures for the fall when the new shit came out. So at that point in my life, I always carried a gun. And these Japanese dudes, you could have a gun in Japan, but I think you have to store it at a gun club. You can't have or it has to be in a locked container or something, whatever, but they don't have handguns. And they surely don't have dudes that just walk around with a gun on them. Anyway, these dudes just loved. I'd always bring an extra box of ball ammo just to let these guys shoot in the desert because we were in the middle of nowhere. And I mean, that went on for like 3 or 4 years. And it was like I was a good assistant too. However, the Japanese execs who came to art direct or watch to make sure that this one-off bike, they got what they needed. They got to, expend a few rounds and they loved it. Anyway, we shot Velvia almost always, and we exposed at 40 and then ran snip tests at normal, minus a third, plus a third, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rolls. But we also had to shoot 4x5 for these beauty shots, and we had what's called like ninja cloth, commando cloth, duvetine. We had miles of it, and we would set it up so when you looked at a car or motorcycle photo, you saw this black line. Well, we were hiding behind that black and made a small hole because this is film time. There was, I mean, yes, they had what's called a Cytex, and that's what they would do there. They would get it into Photoshop, was, one of the first versions, and it was slow as fuck. Anyway, we had to shoot 4x5. And when you're loading film, let's say you loaded all the holders you had, 20 to 30 holders. Well, you're going to have to load those each at least 2 or 3 times because you shoot a lot. Because film's the cheapest part of the equation. When locations, travel, all this shit, film's the cheapest part of the whole thing. So having to get these pristine pieces of 4x5 Velvia into these holders when it's 100 degrees and like 110 in this little tent or the dark bag, trying not to get fucking sweat, it sucked. So when I told my kid, you should probably learn how to do this because they're going to make you learn how to do this at Art Center. She fought me. She did it. She, like, for a couple weeks, she would load 10 and then... So within, like... And she borrowed my view camera to use because everybody else had to rent. She got to use a few things that I had. I was too afraid of some other student, asking to borrow shit, and I actually use it to make money. I don't use it to just, like, I don't know, shoot influencers. Anyway, she texts me and she's like, Dad, I'm already processing my film and these kids haven't even loaded their film holders. Like I said, I mean, kids never want to admit that you're ever right. That was the first week. I think having some beginnings in a darkroom is really good, and I applaud them for still having darkroom staff. They have a dip and dunk line for E6. I'm sure I never asked how they developed C41 or black and white, but they had beautiful equipment to make prints, and even if you just say, oh, that was fun, that was a nice aesthetic, it still gives you a really good foundation, and I really appreciate it because I'm pretty sure that Brooks got rid of that a long time ago, and I think many art schools have gotten rid of a lot of their film stuff. But my kid still shoots a lot of film, and yeah, I think it's fantastic. In fact, I believe she still prefers to shoot film. I'd say that if you asked her, she'd say that was a waste of time going to Art Center. And other people have asked me, hey, would you send your kid that? Would I do it again? Probably not. It is more difficult for a female photographer who wants to go into commercial to get assistant gigs. It just is, because you can't lift as much and dudes are used as mules. So like I said before, some of the lighting they teach there, it's like, hey bro, there's a big new world of lighting trends that maybe you should check out instead of just doing what you think is tried and true. That's fine. And I don't think the dude ever got out of an academic setting. I think, from what I remember, he graduated from Art Center and he went back to go teach, and he never really was a commercial guy. And good people came out of it. Dewey Nix came out of there. A few other people, I don't remember their names anymore, but it was an odd experience to go bring her things, like bring her some lighting gear she didn't have, and just watch. I, I never really liked working with other photographers personally. Like, I don't know. I mean, I gave her some advice too. Like, don't share your clients, don't share your equipment, and don't fucking lend them money. Literally. And I know it's fucked up because I'm a photographer. However, especially in the commercial, like, people who do it for a living, and especially now because almost anybody can do it, they're pretty opportunistic. And, I did never. See, I have to be judicious in what I say. The she didn't enjoy the architecture class because that's super technical. Something I could never see her doing that. Like, if she's like, Dad, I'm an architectural photographer now, I'd be like, okay. I would have never guessed that. I think, yeah, exposing someone to that, I think that you could probably have other electives, unless it's political and they have to have that. And, they, like with, and this is the one that it's like, do I feel bad for saying this? So there was I think it was the third year, they had to take working photographer. One guy was a unit photographer. That means he worked on sets. Totally get that. That, you have to maintain relationships with producers and PR, and, there's business aspects to it. Your rates are basically set by the union. I forget what local it was. I never had an interest in going that route. But there was another working photographer class, and I mean, if you've never done this, okay, let's just say you take pictures. You're a photographer. You perform other aspects of photography, but no one's hiring you as a photographer. I think that's disingenuous to tell students, like, I'm a working photographer, if you're not. And this guy, from what I know, was not a working photographer. He was an English major, and there's a chance he's gonna see this, and that's why I have to be like, I don't want to be a total dick, because I like the dude in certain respects, but I didn't really appreciate the fact that he definitely didn't know what it was like to work as a photographer, and I thought it was disingenuous to make someone take a course from someone whose theoretical observations of photography, they're not going to do these kids any good. Not at all. Sedlick, the business guy, he could have taught that circles around this dude. Like 100 circles. And this dude made, well, it's funny also that the students, they weren't super stoked on the guy, because my kid told me what other students would say, and he would say things like, I suggest you let someone use your camera. I mean, what if one of these people drops your fucking camera because it's not theirs, I don't really use other people's equipment, but I am more, I don't, if it's rental gear, But if it's somebody else's, yeah, I'm not going to be I'm not going to abuse it. But in school, these kids are so, because they say that art center is really tough, but the photography visual department, that it ain't tough. No way. Car design, yeah, that's one of the real programs at that school, but the photography, like, it needs a complete revamp. The guy who runs the place for the photography program, I mean, he runs it, as his little fiefdom. And Yeah, he was a great photographer, and I forget when he stopped doing it, the 80s or the 90s, and he shot, you know, important shit in the music industry, and it was good. I think there are lots of other people that could have a more current look at things, which is less self-serving. I think the whole photography department there is really self-serving, and they really think highly of themselves. Like they think they walk on water when it's pretty funny. Uh, just to stand back and watch for 3 years. So yeah, do you need to go to art school? Uh, would I finance $250,000 to go to art school? I think I'd probably go assist for 2 years, even if I was a girl, and really work my ass off. And I don't know, maybe go to the gym so you could lift just a little bit more, even though now the gear is a little lighter. I don't know. It's not really a hard call because was it good for her? In certain respects, totally. But it's really not the real photography world. And I think they could make it better. And I never said, I said from the beginning, did not want to make these super long. So I don't know what's going to be next. But until next time, stay healthy, guys.